Hello fellow gearheaders, Ron here of Ron's Muscle Car Garage. Thank you very much for watching, everyone. Part 2 of the 568 build. I want to talk to you today about porting the intake. One of the things that I like to do, and I've done this for all my intakes, but also for friends as well, is I like to port the intake properly and make sure it's accurate to the head port. Now, long ago, when I was just kind of starting out, I've been at this for a long time, some of you know, since 1977, I used to hear guys say, yeah, I port matched with my gaskets. Well, I tell you what, I always thought, I don't know how good that would be. I wasn't even sure how to really actually port at that time, but it just didn't seem right to me. And the reason I thought that is because a gasket can move on the slots where the studs or your bolts go through to hold your intake on, and that could chuck around. Now I know that you can kind of place them where they need to be, and there's some ways you can find that, indicate that, but it still wasn't accurate to me. So in time I learned how to lay out properly the intake manifold with the head and everything mocked up in place. Have to use a gasket, all of that, basically clamp it down, not super tight, but you can clamp it down enough to get where you need to be. And then you do your layout. Once you do your layout, then you pull the intake off, flip it over, and you can scribe your lines both horizontally and vertically as you pick up the points that you've marked when it was mocked up, and you can then cut your intake accurately. Now, one of the things I'll say, when I set the bottom line, and that's intake is on the engine, carburetor up here, bottom line is the port going into the head. I want that port to be up at the bottom edge, 50 thousandths. I don't want it to be perfectly in line. I definitely don't want it to be below, because I don't want a spot where it's not flowing in smoothly. So I want that to be up just a little bit. And the reason for that is if you have any raw fuel that gets down into that angle, runner, that it'll actually go off and into that area and not dam up right there. So that's just one of the things I do. The other thing is too, we don't want a super smooth port. We want one that's going to be, I use sanding cones. That's a perfect finish. You can see here that in this picture that I've displayed, that this is not one of my engines, this is a friend of mine, where I was actually using his snap-on bore scopes to take these pictures, or not pictures, but look down the port, and then I took a picture of what I was seeing there on his screen. So that's a good way to not only inspect your work but verify that you have alignment. And I mark little locations there. You see the black marker inside there that just shows me the orientation of my scope as I'm looking at it. But this is important. I don't know what the cost is these days to do a port match, but I'm going to guess it's probably $400 or $500. The problem with it, to me, is that I have to bring all my engine, all my parts to wherever the place is that's going to be doing that work. It's just a hassle. So this is what got me into it initially. I figure I'm in my shop. I mean, I can do this. My background being tool and die, I'm good at layout. But you can do it too. It's not difficult. You just have to know how to transpose the lines. I would suggest getting yourself a 24-inch scale. I have a Starrett 24-inch scale that I use. It's perfect length. I can get a full line across the top and the bottom of the ports for the intake, and then I use a little combination square 6-inch, and then I can actually mark my vertical lines. It's real simple, and you definitely need to do it that way. Once again, the surface inside shouldn't be polished smooth, just like the plenum. Plenum is not super smooth in there either. You need like little tiny scratch marks, basically, is what they are from the cone wheel. And but you want it's fairly smooth, but it's not like mirror finish type thing. You need some turbulence in there, you need some mixing, and that all causes that to happen. I guess that's pretty much it for porting. It's really mostly about the setup. You do need a couple carbide burrs because if you get the wrong roughness, you don't want them to be too smooth because they load up pretty easy. Another thing I'll say about that as well is that on your carbide burrs, what I use is either Tap Magic, or I can even spray WD-40 on the burr. To clean the burr, I have a piece of steel that's set aside, and I can just rake across that steel like I'm grinding that steel, and the aluminum will spit off the, that's clinging to that carbide burr that's loading it up. So there's ways that you can keep that burr clean. Because the aluminum is a little bit sticky, it's softer. But if you get the right size or the right roughness of burr, you're going to find that it works out real well. And I've shown you here, what I use. So, and then the cone wheels, of course, you can go to Harbor Freight. You can buy a whole bunch of cone wheels, super cheap. Comes with a little mandrel and everything, and you can do your port polishing, so to speak. I don't want to say polishing because it's not, like I said, going to be super glass finished, but it's enough to where it's going to be perfect for the flow of the fuel and the air going into the chamber. So once again, I hope that helps. Leave some questions, comments. Thanks for watching, and until next time, like I always say, keep working on them because they're never done.